What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, November 5th, Tuesday. Welcome to the show, everyone, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by the one and only Jason Cabrera. What's up, Jason?
How's it going, Griffin?
It's going. It's a two-man show. CJ, we don't actually know what CJ's doing. We don't know.
He had to go get it. He had to go get some ugly sleep. That's
He had to
go get his ugly sleep.
Get some ugly sleep.
Can't call it beauty sleep.
No, that would be inaccurate, so we couldn't say that. So, no. All right, well, anyway, so two-man show. We have an amazing show for you guys today. Today, we're going to be talking about all of our studs and duds from week number 13, some of our top waiver wire targets for week number 14, and, of course, all of our top headlines from around the league. So quite a bit to get to. Hopefully we can fire through it all pretty quickly. Make sure you guys subscribe wherever you are listening, though. Hit subscribe down below on YouTube, whatever channel, streaming service you're using right now, on iTunes and Stitcher and all the other podcast services that we are on. We're a year-round show, guys. We're here every Tuesday and Friday through the season, through the postseason, through the off-season, into the preseason, draft prep, the whole nine. So if you guys want to tune in, and that's kind of one of those. We do a show pretty early on, and I know we've done post shows and Patreon shows where we talk about how to get better at fantasy football, and it's like the one constant theme is that you have to stick with it. This isn't even like a self-serving promo. If you want to be up to date, you know what's going on, you know what the trends are, you don't get these crazy thought processes in your head that things are going to be the same in 2018 as they were at the end of 2017, you have to stick with it through the offseason. It makes an astronomical difference in your prep and knowledge going into the next year. So stick with it, guys. Stick with the show. We're going to be bringing you all the stuff you need to know through the offseason and every major thing that happens through that time. So we get ready for 2018. But here we are in the, what is it, Jason? What are we going into?
Playoffs.
Playoffs.
The playoffs.
We are officially in the beginning of most leagues, any serious league probably, fantasy playoffs. It is week 14, so most 3-week playoff schedules are starting their playoffs right now, unless you are in a week 17 league, which I've said this many a time. If you are in a league that plays to week 17, just get out of that league because it's not a good league. Your commissioner needs to change that. He needs to.
Bad.
And the reasoning behind it is kind of self-explanatory. I guess we can just simply say, for if you're new to fantasy and this is your first time joining the show, it's a terrible idea because there's a very strong chance that players get rested. The good teams don't start their good players, and the team that is, if you're the number one seed, if you're flying high, you've got this amazing fantasy team, and you've got all these studs that you've worked long and hard to acquire and to build this team around that you're taking to your fantasy playoffs, and then the next thing you know, those players aren't playing that week, and then the lesser team with the crappier players, all their guys start, and you lose. So it's stupid. Week 16 is that safe, sweet spot. You get as much of the season as possible, and you really don't have to worry about teams sitting players. So
we've had whole discussions about this, both on Patreon and on the regular show. So, it's just not smart. I wouldn't want to plan a league like that.
No, it's an incredibly abridged version of the argument, but those are kind of the hot takes and the facts you need to know. Week 17 is a bad idea. It has terrible integrity for the league and for a championship. I mean, if you have a Week 17 championship, you should just put an asterisk by it. So, But of course, we're moving into the playoffs, so we're going to have a lot of discussion going into that, and our entire Patreon show is playoff prep. So if you guys are interested in getting a hold of those bonus shows, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics, where we do the more advanced bonus shows every single week. If you guys want a third show every week, that's where you can go get it. And we greatly appreciate the support, guys. It allows us to keep doing what we're doing and offering this free product to you guys on a weekly basis. So with that, let's move on to our studs and duds from week number 13. Oh, this was a hit or miss week. It was very interesting. A lot of teams.
Very black or white week.
It was. There were teams that we thought were going to do really well that didn't. There were teams that came out of nowhere and did really, really good. Some things that we predicted seemed obvious didn't come to pass, and quite the opposite was the case another time. So, it was a very strange week across the board. For instance, we can start off with the quarterback position, and we do this, as always, with a 6-point per passing touchdown basis. And your number one quarterback on the week by an insane margin is Alex Smith. Now, for starters, all the kudos in the world to you, Jason. This was your start of the week, wasn't not?
This was indeed my start of the week, and we had a short conversation about it during the Start and Sit show, and you guys both said this was dangerous, and I said I thought it'd be okay, and it turned out I was right. That's happened very rarely this year, but it happened this week for me, and Alex has had himself a freaking game. 366 yards, 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns. I love it. I loved watching Alex Smith. He played extremely well.
Oh, yes.
And he did what Alex Smith has been doing all year. He went above and beyond.
Yeah. And, I mean, kind of like what Jason... Oh, you are Jason. Duh. What CJ and I
were... That's me.
You are Jason. You are Groot.
I'm aware. I am Groot.
We were saying, this was dangerous, because it really was. All the trends and everything was saying that this is a dangerous start. It was a high ceiling, like shot at the moon type play. But neither of us said that we wouldn't do it. We were just looking at safer choices. But so I mean, if you had the cojones to start Alex Smith this week, you were rewarded. Obviously, you had top quarterback performance in a losing effort against the New York Jets. So, I mean, this was a high-scoring game. It was 38-31. Of course, that means that the quarterback on the other side of the field probably had a pretty good game. Your number 2 quarterback on the week, Josh McCown, 33.14 fantasy points. He was good for 331 yards and a touchdown. That doesn't sound too impressive until you go to the rushing stats, where he rushed in 2 touchdowns as well and got another 19 yards over there. So all that circled, added up, put up a pretty good fantasy day. So yeah, if you had a piece of the, well, actually, I can't say that. I was gonna say if you had a piece of this game, you were probably pretty happy, but actually,
not necessarily.
Not necessarily. We'll save that. We're getting to the duds.
Right.
There were a lot of studs from this game, a lot, but quite a few duds as well. So we'll get to that. But yeah, the quarterbacks, fantastic outing for both. And then Russell Wilson doing what Russell Wilson does, heating up as the season goes on. He was good for 30 fantasy points, 277 yards, and 3 passing touchdowns, added another 31 yards on the ground. Yeah, you're top performers. I mean, what more is there to say? Blake Bortles came out of nowhere, had a great game. If you streamed him, which I told a lot of people that I was feeling pretty good about it. It was the Indianapolis Colts, and he went out, had a great game. So there's a little bonus content for you. Let's move to the running back position, where I can't wrap my brain around this volume. It's not.
He's a cyborg. The guy's a cyborg. I'm telling you.
No part of what is happening in New Orleans is sustainable. But yet here it is, 2 weeks in a row. Your number 1 running back on the week is second-string running back Alvin Kamara. 24.5 fantasy points. He went for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns on 9 rushing attempts. He also added another 66 yards through the air, catching 5 of 6 targets. The dude is electric. He is on fire, and a very constant term you hear in the fantasy community when it's a player who's massively outperforming or whatever, they say he's on fire. That's a common term. You always hear the expression, you got to stay with the flames. Stay in the flames, either. He's on fire. You can't sit him. He is a locked and loaded sure start every single week, but it's just the volume that's so scary to me, because I'm a stats guy. I'm all about volume, and he's not getting it, but he's making so much out of the volume he is getting. It's insane.
Yeah, he's a home run hitter. He's a home run hitter. When he gets his hands on the ball, he is gone. And that's the thing. He's one of the most elusive backs I've seen in a very long time. And the fact that he ended up in New Orleans, and we decried this the entire offseason. We're like, oh, man, I can't believe this guy's in New Orleans. They don't run the ball.
Oh, yeah.
They got 2 of the top 3 running backs in the league this year for fantasy. And this guy is absolutely, like I said, the dude's a cyborg, I'm telling you. He's running around right now like Sarah Connor, give me the ball, and just down the field. It's amazing to me. 2
of the 3 top running backs in fantasy football, and neither one of them got going until like week 6 or week 7, which is just staggering amount of performance. We were talking up, like you said, Alvin Kamara a lot during the offseason. We were saying we wish that he went to a different landing spot because, he was 3rd on a depth chart. We love the talent.
I'm good with it now.
I'm
good with it now.
I'm okay with it, except for the fact that I didn't get any shares of him. So, yeah, maybe it's just jealousy. But, yeah, Alvin Kamara is a beast. He is a monster. And regardless of volume, he is being so good and so productive. I mean, he's an every week start. Le'Veon Bell came in next, and that's another guaranteed every week start. 24.2 fantasy points. He went for 76 yards on the ground and also added another 106 through the air with a receiving touchdown. That'll get you on a leaderboard most weeks. And then Rex Burkhead, 22.3 fantasy points, showing that he is the red zone back for sure. Deion Lewis, again, getting a lot of yardage. But Rex Burkhead is the one that punches it in. 78 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's the red zone back, and that's what makes him a little bit more boom-bust. But, I mean, hey, it's the Patriots offense. They are generally in scoring position, which means he always has a chance to score for you. So, yeah, Rex Burkhead being a very productive back again. At the wide receiver position, we talked about the players in that Jets-Chiefs game being good. Tyreek Hill finally had a game. He went for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns.
You know, I am so mad at myself because this was the first name that I was going to put down as my start, and I decided to go with somebody else who ended up on the wrong list this week. But, yeah, I thought about because I had put Alex Smith up there, and I wanted to put this guy, and I was like, too big a name. He may not. I should have just done it.
Yep.
I'm so sad.
Tyreek Hill, his first really standout performance since week 7. He had a decent performance in week 9, but I mean, he hasn't had like a big game like this since at Oakland in week 7. If you want to, stay with that narrative, they are at home against the Oakland Raiders this coming week. So maybe some good things to come. You can start connecting those dots. Let's see. Nelson Aguilar was next. 20 fantasy points, 141 yards, and a touchdown. And then A.J. Green, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. He won me a couple leagues. He helped me get into the playoffs. Another one. Well, yes, I was already in the playoffs.
Listen to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. This was your sit of the week. That's right.
This was my sit of the week. And and we were talking about this game a lot, the Monday night game, thinking that Pittsburgh was just going to come in and dominate, and that's not what happened. They won the game, but you agreed with me too, though.
No, I know. You and CJ were the ones that were saying that this was going to be a quick game, but this is my AFC North. I know how these games go, and they're always close. And here it was, decided by a field goal, as is the norm, more than not. But yeah, AJ Green, 2 touchdowns though. I was really excited watching those happen. He actually had a pretty good game, but he
did drop a lot of passes, though. That's the thing about A.J. Green. Lots of drops. I'm like, what? Who is this guy? Why is he dropping the ball over the field?
Yeah, not all of them are great targets, but, I mean, that entire Bengals offense, the wheels kind of came off there in the second half. They blew a big lead, and then, of course, the game itself. So, what are you going to do?
Well, how many penalties did they get? I mean,
too many.
That was part of it, too, is they just gave up, it was over 100 yards of penalties that game. They're absolutely ridiculous.
That's true. That is true. Let's see. Let's go to the tight end position. Travis Kelce had an amazing start to the game, and then he basically did nothing for the rest of it. But 94 yards and 2 touchdowns get you the top tight end spot on the week. Cameron Brate, which got 39 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was 2 for 6. But, I mean, this to me was kind of what the argument I was saying before. Jameis Winston was back, so trade out O.J. Howard.
And he didn't just come back.
Yeah, no,
he didn't just come back. He came back and played really well.
Yeah. The score was a little misleading on that one. It was a lot of mistakes that led to that being, I think, a much closer game than it should have been. Lower scoring than I really thought, because of course I was at a game, so I had to go back and rewatch these games, and I was watching it knowing the results. I was just like, how did this happen? And then as you're watching it, you're seeing, oh, well, error there, mistake there, penalty there, kind of resulted in the overtime situation that occurred. But Ryan Fitzpatrick out. O.J. Howard automatically apparently goes out because Jameis Winston's in, Cameron Brate's back in. So that seems to be the trend for consistency purposes. And then
loves throwing the ball to that guy.
He does. They have a great rapport. And then there's, of course, Evan Ingram, who put up a good week. I mean, even with Geno Smith in there. 15.9 points, 99 yards, and a touchdown, which also I'm dumb, by the way. We were talking all about his time with the Jets, and I said Buffalo Bills for some reason last week. I think I was picturing E.J. Manuel for some reason, even though we were talking about and reflecting all of Geno Smith stats, so I'm dumb. I don't know why I said Buffalo, but yeah, no,
That's all
corrected. Here we go. We fixed it. So yeah, those are your top stud performers on the week, your elite 3 from each position. But now we move into the therapy session where we talk about the duds.
Play the bad music.
Yeah, I don't have the bad music. The sound effects aren't up and running. Nothing's working.
Dang it.
I know.
Come on, man.
We have Tyrod Taylor. Look, the studio, it's hit a massive roadblock. We're working on it. 3.8 fantasy points. He ended up leaving the game in the third quarter, carted off. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. Matt Ryan, hot and cold this year, 7.02 fantasy points. Very disappointing. Brett Hundley, I told everybody, pump the brakes here. I mean, he outkicked his coverage on Monday Night Football against the Steelers last week, so 7.96 fantasy points. Or was that Sunday Night Football? It was Sunday night, wasn't it? It doesn't matter.
Either one.
Yeah, last week. So, yeah, put up a terrible performance against a very, very juicy matchup at home in Green Bay. So there's your sign.
Yep.
Tom Brady, shockingly low, 8.32 fantasy points. Geno Smith, going in for the Giants again, 11.78. And, the more I really thought about this situation, and, of course, we have some news to report on the Giants coming up soon, I really, really despise the decisions that they made here because this is a team that what are they trying to prove here? They benched Eli Manning.
They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. They benched Eli Manning because they said they want to see what they have in Geno Smith. You know what you have in Geno Smith.
You know what you have.
He was the starter for a year and a half, 2 years in New York with the Jets, so they knew exactly what they had. They see him in practice. If they really wanted to transition and see what they had for the future, they should have put Davis Webb in immediately and gone with him. That would have been more respected by players and personnel around the league. This was clearly just a team that had no direction, and the more I looked into it and read and saw the reaction from other coaches, players, personnel around the league, and how much they resented it, I was like, they're right. This was handled about as poorly as I could have imagined. And then
it was handled so badly that CJ even said it was bad. So,
which
that tells you right there.
really says something. The man with no heart is having a moment. So, yeah.
When the Grinch starts carving up the roast beast, you know that something has changed. So, yeah, it was a bad decision. I would have liked to have seen Davis Webb at least a couple of series just to see what he was. I mean, he's not ready. This guy's not ready to start or not ready to play in the NFL right now. But I would have liked to see what he could do, And they, you're right. There's no direction there. I don't know what in the world that was.
I don't know. But of course there have been repercussions from it, and we'll talk about that very briefly. So, and then one last guy, there was Matthew Stafford, 13.88 fantasy points, my sit of the week, and I was the 12th. Right. Again, I was the 12th man there. I feel like I had something to do with that. I was at that game. So, well done, Ravens defense. Though sad news circling them. We'll get to that briefly. Running backs duds of the week. Basically, the ability to get the ball moving on the ground in Seattle continues to be a massive problem for them.
What in the world is going on there?
Eddie Lacy, 0.3 fantasy points. Thomas Rawls, 0.4 fantasy points. So basically, these are guys that they don't want to use. They gave them almost no volume. They weren't good with the small amount of snaps they got. But Mike Davis, looking pretty good out there. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, though. He might be a name that we're talking about in an upcoming section. Same thing in Baltimore, three-headed monster. Danny Woodhead went for 2.3. Buck Allen, Javorius Allen, depending on what website you use. He's known by his legal name, Javorius Allen, 2.6. And this is all because Alex Collins had a great week. If we did a top 5, Alex Collins placed 4th on the week with 21.8 fantasy points, 75 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, another 23 yards. And he did this while battling migraines. I mean, he's been phenomenal in his time starting this year. I think he has cemented himself a job for the future, which everyone likes to see. He's a great person and a great player, so he is fitting in. The lone, truly consistent, shining example on the offense in Baltimore. So the only fantasy relevant option, really. So, if he's getting all the volume, these other guys are not. And I expect that to be the trend going forward, though we have to monitor his health. Let's see. Jaquiz Rogers, 2.5, just not getting anything done. Peyton Barber got more snaps and was way more productive in this game. So I'm so done with
another
Tampa
name
Bay.
we might hear later.
Yeah, I'm just done with Tampa Bay personally. LeGarrette Blount, 2.6. I mean, they were playing from behind. He doesn't catch passes. Jordan Howard, which was my start of the week. Yeah, this was kind of a make or break week, like I said on I think it was Friday's show with Jordan Howard. This was a great matchup, a great opportunity, and this was his chance to get right. And the matchups didn't get any better than this. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
I mean, he had the San Francisco 49ers, a historically bad rushing defense over the last 2 years, and all he could do was 38 rushing yards and -5 receiving yards. That's it.
That's trash.
In a close game. The final score was 15-14. It's not like they were getting blown out and they had to start using Tariq Cohen or anything. So, and this is just kind of the other shoe dropping. I mean, generally, he had a fantastic rookie year, but generally pure rushing running backs, which he can catch the ball, but that's not his strength. They struggle for volume and opportunity on a bad offense, which is what he is on.
Yeah.
So Jordan Howard, I didn't invest anything in him this year because this is what I was concerned about, and this was just a good matchup, and now I'm completely back off him again. So I mean, if you're a Jordan Howard owner, best of luck to you if you're in your fantasy playoffs. That's all I can say. He's got the Bengals and then the Lions, so neither one of those are outstanding opportunities to play him either for the next 2 weeks. And then he's got Cleveland in Week 16, which is a better option, but we'll see. Joe Mixon, 4.2, disappointing, but again, AFC North football is usually low scoring. Isaiah Crowell, 4.4. He had a tougher game. Sorry, what were we going to say?
Yeah. I was going to say Joe Mixon actually got injured. That's why he didn't play most of the game.
He left the game, but he was actually he did have a couple bigger plays, but I don't think he was looking very consistent. I don't know. Maybe he was playing through an injury before he actually went down. Well, we're recording this like directly after the game, so we don't have any news updates as of yet. So we'll let you guys know when we know more, of course, as always. Let's see. Jay Ajayi, 4.6. I mean, again, Eagles playing from behind. Their running game's not going to get going. Frank Gore, 6.1, and then Kareem Hunt, 6.3 fantasy points. This was your sit of the week, was it not, Jason?
Yes, it was.
And just after we finished talking about how Kareem Hunt is no longer an every week starter. So, yeah, again, in a massively high-scoring game, Kareem Hunt, the guy who started the season on fire. Nope.
So on fire, as a matter of fact, that he is still, what is he, the fifth or fourth running back on the season right now still?
He is the number 5 running back on the season, and he has not had he hasn't had an outstanding week since week 3, but he hasn't had a double-digit week since week 7. So, that says something. He's not getting volume. I don't understand it. I don't know why Andy Reid's not giving him the rock. He has proven that he is able to do great things when he has the ball.
Yep.
I just don't understand
it. It's the same thing with Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is the opposite end of this story. They did not hand the ball to him as much as they should at the beginning of the season. Now they started realizing, this dude can run, and they're handing him the ball, and he's scoring. So, yeah, I agree. This is stupid. You hand the ball to your running back. I don't care how much you change your offense.
I'm just looking at the stats right in front of me, and we mentioned his last double-digit game was in Week 7. That was also the last game where he got at least 100 yards. So, I mean, they're just clearly not giving him enough volume. So, I don't know. He rushed the ball 9 times this week. 9 times.
That is just stupid. That's just stupid.
I can't wrap my brain around that. Those are some of the duds that truly let you down and guys you were probably starting. Some wide receivers who let you down. We start with Devontae Parker, who for the second week in a row somehow managed to get you 0.5 fantasy points. So that's just...
He's consistent.
He's consistent, but not in the way that you had hoped. He's got to be droppable at this point. I haven't put a lot of thought into it. This is kind of a gut reaction right now. I have him in a couple leagues. We expected really good things. It's just not his year, and I think a good amount of that is because of his quarterback situation. But what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders 1.1. Not too surprised here.
Speaking of quarterback situation,
inconsistencies lead to bad production on the field. Speaking of bad quarterback situations, Jordy Nelson, 1.7. Went from being a lot of people's in the conversation for top 3, definitely top 5 wide receivers. And he has been, I have to look at this up. I was trying to say, has he hit double-digit points since Aaron Rodgers went down? I mean, not in any one in particular week, but in total.
No. You mean adding all of his stuff together?
Adding all of his weeks together. I'm trying to.
Oh my gosh!
Find.
I mean, look. When did Aaron Rodgers go down?
I believe he went down in. Oh God, this is gonna kill me. It was week number 6, I think, because that was when they were playing the Vikings. Yes, week 6 was the Vikings.
Yes.
So yeah.
So he has scored double digits since then, but just barely.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Call it 11, maybe 12 points.
Yeah.
Since week 6 in total. Oh. Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers is not eligible to return until next week. He won't be in week 14. An amazing matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Then he comes back in time to play Carolina and Minnesota. So, I mean, it's possible if you stash Jordy. I mean, he's a top 5 wide receiver when Aaron Rodgers is in most people's books. So, if you've had him, the news reports seem to be good with Aaron Rodgers. It seems like there's a very good chance he plays in week 15. But hopefully, if your playoff start, you make it that far.
If you look at the weeks that he played, I mean, his first week he was top 10. His second week he was top, he was top 12. Third week he was top 10 again. Fourth week he was number 1. And then of course the drop off, and it's been absolutely awful since then.
I hate it because there's all but like 2 leagues I'm playing in where I am not a Jordy Nelson owner, and it's just killing me.
Yeah.
I can't. Okay. I've got to move on. I'm getting heated. Brandon Cooks.
Make me sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. Brandon Cooks, 2.2 fantasy points. Very disappointing there. Julio Jones doing what Julio Jones does.
Yeah. What did we say? Did you listen to what we said? Yeah.
The inconsistency that is Julio Jones. He goes for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns to 24 yards. Now, nobody was expecting him to repeat that. Nobody. We all know. Not only is that an unsustainable number, but he had a much tougher matchup against the Vikings. But 24 yards for a guy who is considered a top 3 fantasy wide receiver, or just wide receiver in the league.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. This is exactly what he does, week in and week out. He'll have a great game, then he's like, well, I had a game last week. I'm going to just go ahead and chill out this week.
That's basically what it is. He's inconsistent, and part of that's the offense, part of that's quarterback play, and part of it's the fact that he's always hurt and playing through something, so that makes him super inconsistent. So this is the game you play when you draft Julio Jones, which is why he was not a top 5 wide receiver for me. I believe he was my number 6 wide receiver going into draft season. And so far,
I had him that high.
Well, I'm spot on the season. He is the number 6 wide receiver. The people above him were not exactly the order I was expecting or the players I was expecting, but I was right with Julio. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. Behind him, Demaryius Thomas, 2.7. Mike Evans continues to struggle, 3.3. Stephon Diggs, 3.7. Jeremy Maclin, I dropped him in a bunch of leagues, 4.1. And being at the game and being able to watch just his enthusiasm on the sidelines, his interaction in the huddle and on the field, him dropping balls that Joe Flacco hasn't thrown a lot of great balls this year, but there are a handful at this game that hit him right in the hands, and then he dropped them. So it's I don't know if there's something wrong with Maclin or if Kansas City was onto something by releasing him, but he is.
I think he's just done.
He might be, and he's not that old. That's what's frustrating. Devontae Adams, your set of the week, if I remember correctly, 4.2 fantasy points. Adam Thielen, 5.1. Sterling Shepard, 5. No, Devontae Adams was your start of the week.
He was my start. Yeah, he was my start because he done so well with Brent Hundley throwing the ball, and
such a good matchup. Yeah, such a good matchup.
Not a good. It didn't go well.
No, no, it did
didn't
not.
go well for me.
I mentioned Adam Thielen, 5.1, and then Sterling Shepard, no surprise, struggling with quarterback inconsistencies, 5.6. And then the tight end position, let's wrap this up strong. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, 0.7. Amazing that a shootout that went the way it did, this is all he was able to produce. Jared Cook, which was my start of the week. They just ran the ball. They're like, okay, our top two guys are down. Let's just run. I don't get it. You have Derek Carr and a good offensive line. Throw the ball. 0.9 fantasy points. Jesse James, 1.3. Vernon Davis, 1.5. CJ Fedorowicz, 1.6. Jack Doyle, 1.6. Here's O.J. Howard.
I almost put him as my sit. Almost.
Doyle or Howard?
Doyle. I almost put Doyle as my sit.
That would have been a very, I think, easy choice because, playing the Bengals, the Jaguars, never a good idea. Not this year. So O.J. Howard, 1.7. Again, quarterback swap. He went back to being irrelevant, so that's definitely a stat that's trackable. Charles Clay, 2 points. No consistency there. He had 3 different quarterbacks throw passes in this game, so pretty bad. Austin Hooper, 2.1. Zach Ertz, 2.4. Tyler Kroft, 3. Eric Ebron, 3.8. And Ricky Seals-Jones, 4.4. None of these tight ends even got you 5 points. Yeah. No, it was.
Yeah.
With that, let's move into our top headlines from around the league, and let's fill you guys in on some of these things we've been hinting on this whole time. We'll start with some league-wide headlines in New York with the Giants, where the New York Giants have fired both head coach Ben McAdoo and general manager Jerry Reese. So,
do you feel that? Do you feel that, Griffin? Do you hear the Angels? They're just like, oh, it's about time. It's about time. Jerry Reese has been needing to go. He's finally gone. And now the Giants can move on and try to find themselves a new brain trust that will actually make these guys good. They've got talent on this team. So finally, they're going to hopefully get a good GM in there who will pick a good coach.
Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't understand where all the hate for Jerry Reese is coming from. I mean, this team made the playoffs last year.
He's bad.
Since he's been there, in his 10-year stint, they've won 2 Super Bowl rings in the 2007 season and the 2011 season. Ben McAdoo, he has been hot and cold. This ends his 4-year stint in New York.
You hit on it. You hit on it, though. They won 2 Super Bowls. Who was the coach when they won those 2 Super Bowls?
Coughlin.
And what happened when the team started to list a little bit? They got rid of Coughlin. That's not what you do. You don't drop your coach when you win 2 Super Bowls. You don't drop a good coach because you think it's time to move on. You cut somebody when you think they're not doing a good job, and that is not what was going on with Tom Coughlin. Look at San Francisco. When they turned around and they let Harbaugh go. The stupidest move they possibly could have done. That man was consistent. He got them to the playoffs. He got them to the Super Bowl. He got them to the NFC Championship game over and over and over again, and they let him go. You do not do that. If you drop a coach who's winning you games, you are a bad GM. And Jerry Reese is a bad GM, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree with everything you just said, but when it comes to firing a head coach, ownership is involved in that just as much as the general manager. So that's just bad front office work. But, I mean, it's hard to argue with a guy that in 10 years, he turned the defense around last year, made the playoffs, won 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's overall, that's pretty good. And then Ben McAdoo, this, as I mentioned, ends his 4-year stint. He was there for 2 years as the offensive coordinator under Coughlin, where he was very productive, and then 2 years as a head coach, where he made the playoffs 1 year and they got fired the next year. So not a lot of love in New York, but I mean, I guess that's fair. Again, there's a lot of talent on this team, a lot of money invested, and this was a team with playoff aspirations, which now has had a historically bad season. This is one of the worst seasons they've had in not just years, but decades.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As far as McAdoo goes, I mean, I feel sorry for him as far as this goes because this team going into the season, they went out and got Brandon Marshall. They had Sterling Shepard. They had Odell Beckham Jr. They had one of the best-looking receiving corps in the league, and they lost both of their big guns. And they've lost Sterling Shepard for a lot of the season. He's been hurt a lot and on and off. So it's not fair, really. I mean, it's not fair what's happened to them, but bottom line is this team should have been much, much better. Even with losing those guys, they should have been better.
You know what I honestly think was kind of the straw that broke the back here? I think the way they handled the Eli Manning situation.
Smith.
Yeah.
When they decided to cut him and put him on, or not cut him, but put him on the bench.
Yeah.
Bench him and put in Geno Smith, of all things. Yeah. That was a smack in the face to a guy that won them 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. The way it was handled and the backlash. Oh no, they terrible. But the backlash that they also got from around the league, just why would you handle it the way they did? I think that was the final straw.
Yep.
Like, you know what, we're moving on. So
move on. Time to move on.
I have yet to hear who's stepping in as temporary head coach. Have you? I don't think they've announced it yet.
Not.
So
I'm guessing Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo would be my gut reaction.
That would be mine as well.
I don't really know.
Yeah, defensive coordinator. Yeah. So we'll see.
Only guy working hard for that team.
Seemingly.
Only guy working,
All right. Well, New York Giants fans out there, we feel your pain. We've all been there, and it's going to be an even more interesting offseason for you guys now. But your offseason gets started early. Now, if there's a guy that front office is targeting, they can start acquiring. That gives them a head start. And I'm sure, and draft targets as well. So, yeah. Man, this is going to be an interesting offseason. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah. Speaking of the quarterback position, ESPN's Jordan Raanan reports that Eli Manning is expected to reacquire his starting job following the firing of Ben McAdoo. So we could be seeing Eli back, which on one hand, he should be in. On the other hand, it should be either him or Davis Webb. I still stand by the Geno Smith. He was a good backup to have, but now that you're in let's see what we have for the future mode, it doesn't make any sense to put Geno in.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you completely.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. It'll be, as I mentioned, it's going to be really interesting going forward. Buffalo Bills quarterback Tyrod Taylor, who, as we already mentioned, was carted off the field in the third quarter. He has a patellar tendon contusion in his knee. The team has announced that he is considered day-to-day, so his status is currently somewhat up in the air for Week 14. But
that's mainly pain. That's pain mitigation is all that is. It's just a bruise, basically, but it's a bad
one.
Bruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good news, though, because it looked bad.
Yeah.
Let's see. Running back news. New Orleans Saints running back Mark Ingram was limited in practice on Monday. He's dealing with a toe injury. If not, that just means that Alvin Kamara is going to get more touches and, by basic math, apparently be unstoppable in fantasy. So I'll put that out there.
1,000 points.
Yeah, he's going to put up a 1,000-yard rushing day. Arizona Cardinals head coach Bruce Arians was non-committal in recent interviews with running back Adrian Peterson's status for Week 14. Of course, dealing with a neck injury.
Careful.
A surprise inactive, a late inactive last week. So, have you heard anything else, being our Cardinals fan on the show, Jason?
Well, I was they were downplaying it like crazy the whole week. Like, oh, it'll be fine. And then right near the end of the week, they were like, he's not fine. And so, yeah, it was crazy to see that. But honestly, given how Kerwin Williams played, I don't see them rushing Adrian Peterson back to the field. They're going to probably let him heal. And given the fact that we pretty much are out of the playoff picture now, I don't expect to see Adrian in Week 14. Of course, I was dead wrong last week, so I could be dead wrong this week too.
It is, the misdirection that is head coaches is always frustrating, and
especially freaking Arians.
Yeah,
Arians is killing me.
Do you guys still have a shot at a wild card?
Yes, we've mathematically got a shot at the wild card, but the way we're playing right now, I highly doubt it.
Yeah, because you can't win the division now. You could tie the Rams.
No, we mathematically are. Yeah, you can't win. We can't win the division. We can take the wild card spot, but again, the way we're playing the game, the way we're playing right now, is highly unlikely.
You are currently the 12th seed in the NFC, so you got a lot of climbing to do. Currently, the wild card spots in the NFC are the Seahawks and the Panthers, so you guys have to climb ahead of one of them. Falcons, Lions, Packers, Cowboys, and Redskins are all ahead of you guys, so we'll see.
Yeah. And we have a head-to-head with the Seahawks later, but I just don't see it happening.
And somehow, some way, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still also mathematically not eliminated. Wow.
How does that happen?
How does that happen? I don't know. I thought the NFC was. I mean, the NFC is top heavy, but I mean that's just impressive. All right. Well, so that's a thing. Let's move on. Let's see. Wide receiver news. Buffalo Bills wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin is expected to resume practice this week. He's dealing with a knee injury. We've been talking about that as of late. In tight end news, New England Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski has been suspended for 1 game following his, I thought, extremely late hit on Buffalo Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White. Did you see that, Jason?
I actually did not see that.
Holy
I heard about it.
So he was on the ground. One of the, I think it was Amendola. I don't know, I have to go back and look. One of the wide receivers already touched him down. He intercepted a ball intended for Rob Gronkowski. And then as he was starting to get up from the ground, Gronk launched head and shoulder first into the back of his head while he was basically still on his stomach on the ground. So, like...
Come on, Gronk.
Yeah, it was like, okay, touchdown. Gronk saw it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, starting to get up and launch.
Boom.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was a blatant and incredibly well-deserved suspension.
Yeah.
So I'm honestly, that was borderline headhunting. I'm surprised. They could have maybe made a case to make it a 2-game suspension. So, yeah.
I think they should have, honestly, for that kind of thing.
You can't stand.
Such a big star.
You can't stand.
I would have.
I mean, because at least if they made it 2, if he did appeal it, that they're guaranteed to at least get him the one that they are apparently trying to give him here initially. So, I mean.
Exactly.
I don't know. I know it's a physical game and emotions are on high, but there's got to be some level of control and discipline out there. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, did you see the Monday night game was a perfect example. I mean, just really bad ugly plays.
Yeah.
Juju Smith-Schuster did this did a cutback block, and just absolutely took out perfect. And then he stood over him, and it added insult to injury. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up with a suspension.
It's possible. But, AFC North, there's a lot of bad blood there, so I'm not surprised. It's a hard. I feel like I'm tooting my own horn here because it's my division, so I talk about it. But, we're known as a hard-hitting division. It's a lot of defense there. So, mind games as well. It's all about who's tougher mentally. So, fights lead to stuff, but this late blatant hit where the guy's back is turned to you is unacceptable.
Do it.
And then in much sadder news as well, this is not just because it is my Ravens, but it is worth mentioning. Baltimore Ravens cornerback Jimmy Smith, star cornerback, I'm going to say, because he was rated by Pro Football Focus as one of the top 3 corners in the league. He tore his Achilles tendon on Sunday. He is headed towards injured reserve, and this is worth bringing up for fantasy purposes because he was the lockdown, shutdown corner for the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens, obviously, as we've already mentioned, are one of the top elite pass-catching defenses. They were number 2 going into the week against fantasy wide receivers. Well, as soon as he went down, I was at this game, I was watching it, rookie first-round pick Marlon Humphreys, who I think has an incredibly bright future. He went in. At this point, I think the score was either 17 or 20 to nothing, and all of a sudden, the Lions drove down the field twice and scored touchdowns, back-to-back drives. And who were they targeting the entire time? Rookie Marlon Humphreys. So he got some redemption getting an interception later in the game, but that was kind of a YOLO. Stafford chucked it up, and he just happened to be in the vicinity. He didn't make like an amazing play on it. But, Humphreys, he had a really tough time. So with Smith being down, they're going to have to make some serious adjustments to keep as stingy of a unit as we've had all season long. So look for a little bit more breathing room with pass catchers against Baltimore. Go ahead.
Yeah, not necessarily a good thing for you guys, but I will say this, though. Watching how Humphreys played, Jimmy Smith on one side, Humphreys on the other, down the road, that could be very, very nice.
That's all I've wanted to see all season. I've wanted to see Jimmy Smith on one side, Marlon Humphrey on the other, and Brandon Carr move from outside to in the slot, which he did a lot of that in Dallas. So I that's what I think we should be doing. But it's a rookie; they don't want to rush him in and put him up against number 1s, number 2 receivers. I get all that, and that's smart. We had to rush Jimmy Smith out in his rookie year, and it's trial by fire. But there's something to be said from that as well. But this is a team.
Look how well he's playing now. I mean, Jimmy Smith is a perfect example of what we're talking about. You rush him out, it sucks for a little while, but you know what? Once they get their feet under him, you're going to have a very nice cornerback tandem. Oh,
no, I can't wait. But I think it also comes down to the fact that the Ravens battled back, and they're now 7-5. We are in the 6th seed with a little bit of we're 1 game up on the rest of the pack that's in the hunt right now. So I think they're just trying not to experiment as much as possible. But of course now we're kind of forced to. So it is what it is.
Not much choice.
Yeah. So that's the news, and let's move into the topic of the day. Our top waiver wire targets for week number 14. Now, as always, we could give you guys names. We could give you guys names that are obvious, that are probably out there in your leagues because they're owned in like 3/4 of leagues, so there's a 1 in 4 chance that they're available, but that's not what we do. We give you guys names of players that are available in at least 50% of leagues, and I think we really try to give you guys an even better chance of that. Like, I think the highest owned person that we have that we're talking about today is owned in 26% of leagues. So there's a
26, yeah.
there's a 3 in 4 chance that he is available for you guys. And this is these are the guys that what's the point of saying, hey guys, go pick up Jamal Williams? Well, he's owned in like 80% of leagues. So yeah, you should own Jamal Williams. He should be rostered, duh. But that doesn't help you guys. So we're gonna start at the running back position, and I am recommending that everybody go out and target. And I know this is gross because it's Seattle Seahawks, and they have not run the ball almost at all this year, except for with one Chris Carson, who, of course, then got hurt. But Mike Davis, he got the rock, and he was effective this past week. As I already mentioned, Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls combined for less than 10 yards. But here we all of a sudden have this guy come out of nowhere, and he goes out there and he puts up a week. He goes for, about 100 yards, I think? I wrote it down. No, 64 yards.
Mike Davis?
Yeah, 64 yards rushing and 37 yards receiving. So a little over 100 total yards. Didn't score, but this was, mind you, against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, one of the top rushing defenses in the league. So I like that as a sign of things to come. Look, I know this team has had a bad history running the ball. I know that this team has no offensive line, but I mean, if they're going to give someone volume,
how many running backs have they been through this year? Eddie Lacy, Thomas Rawls, J.J. McKissick,
Chris Carson,
P.J. Chris Carson.
So
Mike Davis. It's been like 8 guys.
I think he's the 7th. Yeah, he's the 7th running back to take snaps for them.
Wow.
But hey, if he keeps getting the volume, because it looks like they don't want to give Eddie Lacy or Thomas Rawls the ball. They're not healthy. They haven't been productive. They're looking for an option, and Mike Davis could be that option. So if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for a guy that you could be getting a floor play from, volume is key. For a good floor, Mike Davis could be that guy. So he's worth a shot. I don't know if I'm spending a ton of my free agent budget to get him, but, I mean, if you can get a shot at a guy, you need a running back. It's an option for you. Go get him. I guess CJ's not here, so we have to do his guys. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, sure.
So CJ has Rex Burkhead, 24.3 fantasy points, and it's the same argument that we've had for the last couple weeks. Dion Lewis is the workhorse. He's getting the majority of the snaps and the carries. Rex Burkhead is just as versatile as Dion Lewis, receiving, rushing, but he is one thing that Dion Lewis is not, and that is the red zone back. He gets the vast majority of the red zone rushing attempts, so a good scoring option as well. So volume not as high, but scoring opportunity much higher than Dion Lewis, so why not roster him? Both these guys should be rostered. Either one of them you can make an argument to start week in and week out. Only owned in 24.3% of leagues, so I would go get Rex Burkhead. Anything you want to add to that, Jason?
Nope, I think that's a good choice.
All right, well, go ahead and tell me your guy.
All right, I actually put 2 on here. First guy I put on here is Kerwin Williams with my Cardinals. The reason I put him on there is, like we mentioned earlier, Adrian Peterson looks like he might be out for just a bit with that neck injury. Plus, when Kerwin Williams got the opportunity, rushed for over 100 yards. He looked extremely good. If he had scored a touchdown, he would have been one of the top performers this week. So Kerwin Williams owned in 9.5% of leagues. Definitely someone you probably want to put on your bench and keep your eye on the injury report.
Yep.
Next guy I want to mention is Peyton Barber. We already mentioned his name once earlier in the show here.
Was me throwing up a little bit.
I know. Throw up in your mouth a little bit. It's okay. You'll be all right.
Not Peyton for your choice, Barber, but just the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense as it is right now.
I realize. No, I completely realize. But you know what? This guy came in and ran for 102 yards and received for 41 yards. He didn't score any touchdowns. If he had, again, he would have been a top performer this week. And then last week against Atlanta, he scored 2 touchdowns. So he had another nice day. He gets opportunities and takes advantage of them. Plus, he was named the lead back this last week, and I think that's going to continue given the fact that he just put up a very nice week, much better than any of the other guys they've had back there. So I think Peyton Barber is going to get his opportunities going forward, this is someone you want to grab now, put him on your bench, and watch and wait and see if he's going to be good. And you know what? I think he's going to be good. I'd probably start him if I had him.
Keep an eye on Doug Martin coming back, but yeah.
Keep an eye on the reports. Obviously, if they say, okay, Doug Martin's going to be the lead back, then yeah, you may want to step out of that. But yeah. I'm telling you, from what we saw, and as bad as Doug Martin has been this year, I think they're looking for a breath of fresh air, and that breath of fresh air's name might be Peyton Barber.
It might be. Let's go to the wide receiver position, where I never thought I'd be this guy, but I mean
and there he is.
And yet there he is.
The guy.
I've never bashed this guy, but I've never been in his camp. But hey, check the tape. Josh Gordon, Cleveland Browns, at one time, many years ago, many moons ago, he was the top wide receiver in fantasy, even ahead of Megatron Calvin Johnson one year. That was his one standout year in 2013. But, since then it's been a real crapshoot. But he is now clean, sober, active, healthy, and out there in his first game back for 77% of the team's offensive snaps, and he led the team with 11 targets. We heard all these reports that he was going to get as many targets as he could handle. He was going to be worked in heavily, and yes, he was. Now, to be fair, he only caught 4 of them, but, not bad going against Casey Hayward's and a really good, just in general, I think underrated the Chargers defense. He put up a very good week on his first week back, 85 yards. Didn't score, but I mean, he had a couple of broken up passes in the end zone. He was targeted, featured, used. I mean, this guy, if he can keep building on this, which history has shown he has the skill set to do so, he could be one of those late edition season-winning targets. So I am absolutely burning. If I need a wide receiver, I'm burning a lot of what I have on Josh Gordon, because also remember, this is the Cleveland Browns, guys, which on one hand makes you think, ugh, but on the other hand, you have to realize this team is going to be down. They are always down. So they're passing to catch up. Who's getting the volume? Josh Gordon. Go get him. And if it's a PPR league, forget about it. If he starts catching more of these targets, he is going to put up monster weeks for you guys. So again, owned in only about a quarter of leagues out there. Go get him. I guess we have to do the next one. CJ's guy, Marquise Lee. Now, Marquise Lee, he is, of course, he's a Cincinnati. Oh, wow. Oh, Cincinnati. What is wrong with me? He is a. Why do I keep mixing up Bengals and Jaguars? I know they're both big cats, but I've been screwing it up all show. All right.
Throw a lion in there. Come on. Change it up.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, this is a guy who has been basically the locked and loaded number 1 wide receiver in Jacksonville for the last half the season. He's been targeting about 10 targets a game and a good 70 yards. He's getting a touchdown about every other game on average. I mean, he's been doing really good in an offense which is trying to be run heavy. But Leonard Fournette's banged up. Chris Ivory is inconsistent. They need to throw the ball. And even against tough matchups, he's been decent. So I think that he is a guy who, I mean, if you're looking for a floor play with a ceiling, Marquise Lee could be that guy, and he's owned in 18.7% of leagues right now, so odds are he's out there. So if you're looking for, I'm not going to say a number 2 wide receiver, I think he has that upside, but if you're looking for a flex play for sure, this guy could easily fill those shoes. So I feel comfortable in that. I don't. How much would you spend on a guy like Marquise Lee? Like Josh Gordon, I'm going all in, but Marquise Lee, I mean, late in the season, you're looking for a volume floor play, PPR option maybe. Maybe anywhere from a fifth to a quarter of my remaining budget, do you think? Is that too much?
I think that's given where we are in the season and what's out there and what's available, I think that's probably a decent amount because, like you said, this is their number 1 guy right now.
Right.
No Allen Robinson, and he's going to get the volume, and he's going to put up good weeks, and this last week is the best week that he's had, so he's getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, I'm usually more decisive with my analysis, but I literally didn't even have the thought process. Oh, yeah, CJ's not here. We have to talk about his guys. I guess we could skip them, but then that's shortchanging the listeners, you guys listening, so we're not going to do that. So, yeah, I feel comfortable in saying that somewhere between a fifth and a quarter of my remaining budget if I'm looking for a flex option, PPR wide receiver with upside. And red zone target. So, yeah. Jason, your guy.
Yeah. This is a guy I've been banging the table for now for a couple of weeks. Marquise Goodwin. Speedster over in San Francisco. With the addition of Jimmy Garoppolo, he had the second most number of yardage in his career thus far, 99 yards, no touchdowns against Chicago, but that whole San Francisco offense was looking for touchdowns. The thing I liked what I saw from San Francisco. Garoppolo looked very, very good, looked very sharp, made some really nice throws, made some good decisions. He got a cheap interception was grabbed from him. But overall, he looked really, really good, and Marquise Goodwin was one of his favorite targets. He just kept going to him. So I think the volume is going to increase for Marquise Goodwin. I think he's going to get more options, and eventually when Garoppolo starts feeling comfortable, he's going to launch that ball down the field, and this little speedster is going to go get it and get himself some touchdowns. So I definitely think you should be grabbing Marquise Goodwin. He is available. He's only taken in 4.6% of leagues. Go grab him.
Do you like him as a plug-and-play guy, or are you picking him up to start him every week as like a flex option?
I've plugged and played him the past couple of weeks, and he's done okay for me, getting me a decent amount of points. I mean, I don't expect week-winning performances out of him, but I do expect to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 points, which he's been doing, and he's going to start going up. He's going to start getting in the double digits here in the latter part of the year, just in time for your playoffs.
All right, I like it. And then that leaves us with our tight end pickups of the week, and it's slim pickings out there, folks. It really is. But I mean, this
especially
was
in this position.
This week. You know what really sucked about this week is that I'm such a believer in streaming, but like almost all the streamers, quarterback and tight end, were just crap this week. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But you got to go back to the well. And I am staying with one of my guys that I've been kind of tooting the horn with all season long, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Now, I know he has been underwhelming. He started off on fire, which was something I was telling everybody he would do. He has since cooled off, and not a lot of that is on him. I mean, he's still been getting volume. He's still getting snaps. He's had a number of touchdowns called back, and because of that, your fantasy weeks have not been all that they could be. Well, he's going against the Denver Broncos this coming week. They just do seemingly nothing but give up touchdowns to the tight end. They are a top 5 streaming option for tight ends to play against. And, I mean, this Jets offense, I didn't think I'd say this going into the year. They have been on fire as of late. So yeah. I'm staying with a high-scoring offense with a guy who is still a red zone target and getting a good amount of the targets there. So Austin Seferian-Jenkins, he's definitely a boom-bust tight end right now, but he has a juicy matchup coming up this week. So at the very least, I'm picking him up as a one-week starter for me if I need a tight end. CJ's guy is Ed Dickson for the Carolina Panthers. Did I miss something on Greg Olsen? Is he out?
I'm actually I feel bad, but I'm actually not sure. Let me look.
I just don't remember hearing anything. I've gone through a lot of game tape and film. I don't remember. Is. Huh. All right.
I guess he is. I don't see him. Yeah, he didn't score any points this week, so yeah.
Oh, he must have been out. Was he a scratch and I completely forgot about it already? I don't know. My brain's already moved on to week 14. I can't remember week 13 anymore. But no, either way, this is a guy you should get because as we talked about on Friday's show, this foot injury that he's dealing with, this is something that lingers. It's probably going to require a second surgery in the offseason. So even if Greg Olsen plays, he's probably not going to be productive. So I think Ed Dickson is a good pickup and option and safe start if Greg Olsen does not play because the Carolina Panthers like to throw to their tight ends. Cam Newton loves featuring and targeting his tight end. So why not get a piece of that? Ed Dickson is a guy who's only owned in 3% of leagues. A lot of upside to be had there. Not the most consistent player, but a very athletic pass-catching tight end. Jason, anything you want to add, or you can just move on to your guy? Final guy.
I think we should just move on to my guy. Okay, so my guy is Ricky Seals-Jones, and I've talked about him a couple times, and he has played very, very well down the stretch since he started with us. He scored touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 weeks. He is the top tight end over the last 2 weeks. Even though he didn't have a very great game this last week, we were playing the Rams, which always play us tough, and that is a very tough matchup either way for tight ends. But this next week we'll be playing the Titans, a little bit better. Still a tough team. However, the Titans have actually given up quite a few points in the last couple of weeks to the tight end position, including this week. Against Houston, they gave up the 4th most, or was it 4th or 5th? I think it's the fourth most points to the tight end position this last week. So this is a guy that you're going to want to grab. He's got a good matchup going forward. I think that he's going to get himself a touchdown this coming week.
I'm looking it up right now. The Rams are giving up the 6th least points of fantasy Titans.
Titans.
Titans. Titans are the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th least points. It's a tough matchup.
Well, it's a tough matchup, but look at the actual weeks. Look at the last 3 weeks. 13 points, 16 points, and then this week they actually gave up it's the fifth most points, 13.9 points. So they've been giving up points and touchdowns over the last 3 weeks.
Yep. 94. They gave up 94 yards to tight ends last week. So I mean, if you can get a piece of that, that's comfortable. So yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's going to do it for us today. Please make sure you guys tune in on Friday when we will be back with our starts and sits for week number 14 for your what, Jason?
Playoffs.
Wow, that was so much dead air. Holy crap.
What?
Yeah, that was probably just a phone delay.
You got to remember, there is a time lag.
I know.
You need to remember this when
we're going from East Coast to West Coast and back to East Coast again for the recording. So yeah, and I get it. There's some lag there. And make sure you guys just come back every Tuesday and Friday. We're here year round, all the stuff you need. Hopefully bringing home some titles. We got to make like a hashtag like we did last year. We heard all about people bringing home titles, and we want to keep that going. And subscribe and make sure you guys check out the Patreon shows. That's where the really in-depth and kind of off-topic stuff is, because we're kind of locked into what we can talk about on our 2 main shows. We do, Studs and Duds, Waiver Wire on Tuesday. We do Starts and Sits and News on Friday. And we want to talk more, which is why we have a 3rd show that we were able to squeeze in over on Patreon. So if you guys are looking for more of us, patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics, and helps us keep these lights on and keep doing what we're doing, which is truly a work of passion. We want to keep bringing you guys this labor of love, and helps us keep doing it. So and this week, as we already mentioned, we're going to be talking all about playoff prep, what you should be doing to be preparing for your playoff push. For all of you who made it into your fantasy playoffs, congratulations to you guys. If you still have another week to go, we're going to get you there, and hopefully we can bring home as many of these fantasy titles as possible. So if you guys enjoyed the show, please make sure you rate, subscribe, review, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, YouTube, whatever. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up. Any parting thoughts, Jason?
I want to give a shout out to our listener league. You guys have played exceptionally well this year. Done a fantastic job. In fact, I think there's only one of the hosts that's in that's going to be in the playoffs. So great work, guys. Just an amazing year for you guys.
It has been a fantastic season. The entire league is within 1 or 2 games of the playoffs, so it's a very close bubble. It's been really intense. I've enjoyed it, even though I've been playing with one arm tied behind my back because of the draft. I hate. I need to go back and watch that footage again and see if I can spot who screwed me in that draft.
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. No,
I'll
don't do it.
And then they will feel my wrath.
David Johnson early.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't do it, man. That's what got me. Yeah, I'm dead last in our league. I feel like a scrub in our league.
To be fair, you spent a lot of money on David Johnson and then lost him in week 1. But
then lost him. Yeah,
those are the risks of auction drafts. That's why it's all about budget management. Or when somebody bids somebody up to $51 when it's at $20, and all of a sudden you bid because you think you're bidding $22 and you bid $52, and there goes a quarter of your budget on a player you didn't even want. Yay!
You're gonna have to let that go, man.
I will never let it go because it ruined my season. All right, I'm out of here. Everyone, take care. Have a great week. We will see you on Friday, if not sooner, on the Patreon show. Take care, guys. Bye.